Please locate the National Library of Sweden at Humlegarden 10241 in Stockholm, Sweden. The National Library of Sweden at Humlegarden 10241 in Stockholm, Sweden.
Yes, we have the place.
Please locate inside this place the Codex Gigas. It means giant book in English. The Codex Gigas. It's a large medieval manuscript. It's also known as the Devil's Bible.
Yes, we have this.
This book's history is disputed. Please examine it and its author. Please briefly describe.
It does not seem to be an author per se, it seems to be a group of people. This would be more to those who would study the laws of nature. However, there is, as we are viewing, several faces that would be in the astral realm themselves. Those that you would determine as being demonic or evil or mischievous. We would view them as being misguided and having their own sustenance, their own source of existence. They are attempting to bite us, distract us, frighten us away. There are 3 or 4. One with a traditional demonic face with horns, another with a round face, curly hair but red eyes, and a third one that would be something like a lynx or cat attempting to widen its mouth, showing its jaws, attempting to bite us, but this is harmless as they are misguided. There has been with this book association of what would be the dark side of prayer, that of the use of repetitious incantations or sayings. This is not a infernal book, but rather a book that was used by even those that would be considered druids, or those that would be understanding nature's ways as to the consciousness of nature. This book would be used to overcome enemies or to prevail against individuals or groups that would attack this fortress nation. It would be incantations, it would be prayer, it would be the use of thought forms, the use of associations with those who would be in discarnate circumstance. It does not appeal to a single deity that would be greater than avatar or angel or the like, but rather to those who would be at the lower levels, to the mundane world, nature spirits, or those who would be in charge of certain realms that you would call more to the mundane or the physical world itself. That is to say, limited upon the earth itself, not reaching out to other strata, levels of space, the universe, the galaxies, so to speak, or to the greater consciousness that controls this universal aspect or mind. Therefore, it is to the lower level incantations. However, there is definite ability telekinetically or physically to influence matter, as there is with any understanding of prayer and of those forces you would call spiritual or psychic or here mystical, paranormal, metaphysical. Understand they are the same forces that can be used for healing and good, relief of suffering and the inclusion of benefit for wealth and well-being on all levels. Simply they are reversed and used as a protective vice, shall we call it, in its original form. Then, as there would be some association with other levels of consciousness, other organizations, they would date to the Egyptian influence, that would date to beyond that of the Egyptian, but into that of the Atlantean, and then Lemurian, and then to that you would call the Pansean consciousness. These are simple understandings, how to incorporate the mental levels with the physical level, involving the spiritual influences. Black magic, black thoughts, black spirituality. If you wish these names to understand it, so be it. But even the Master, as it is accounted in the good book, could show that by anger or by curse, that trees would wither, that people can be influenced to illness or even death by words of one who has a powerful mind. This ability, these abilities, can be considered recorded innocently, directly, in this history book, you'll say. Direction.
Okay, thank you. Some pages were reported to be torn out or removed. Very briefly, what was on these pages?
These would be specifically how to affect rulers, that their ruling tendencies might be, let us say, corrected, that they might be punished. These would be in reference to specific incantations or prayers that would be directed towards rulers that would be a little too greedy, or they that would be a little too violent and obsessive with their unlimited power, that they would cause harm. And here organizations within the organization would be able to mass individuals, several at a time, and there would be some, let us say, invisible influence brought upon any who would be in authoritative or leadership roles. This would be specifically on how to overcome mass minds, or those minds that would be in accord or in favor of one ruler, one tyrant, one dictator, one king, one emperor, whatever, and curtail their use in their own regard, these same forces over the many. A sort of, not a policing action, but a sort of governing action by masses of people who would be good men, good minds, of good heart, that would curtail, limit, or isolate any particular ruler that would have been, well, call it here, excessive in all the physical appetites, obsessed with its own power, causing harm to its own people. Those that would be crazed with this unlimited power, so to speak. Understanding it has a comprehension of the forces of nature and how to manipulate them or to control them. In this regard, it would be dangerous to those who were at the pinnacle of power in their own time.
Okay.
Direction.
Thank thank you. From what you described earlier, it sounds like the authors of this book were not even human. Could you briefly clarify that?
We would give it as that of individuals who would be in contact with the dimensions above, not that they were themselves interdimensional beings, but that they had communication with the higher dimensions, or realms, as you might call it. You might even say, to the keepers of the various heavens, you'll say. Direction.
Okay, so they were, thank you, briefly, were they under some kind of demonic possession or demonic influence as they wrote? Is that the consensus here?
If you were to think of it without extremes, that is to say, it wasn't angelic and it wasn't demonic, it was simply a comprehension of the spiritual worlds, dimensions, and how they are connected, as above as below. Then you would begin to see it would be simply an instruction book, so to speak, of what the truth is and the application of that truth, to be constructively constructive or to be destructively constructive. Alpha and Omega, the beginning and the end, the creator and the destroyer. These are often referred to the spiritual realms, or to the spiritual beings, or to that it would be the great mind of God itself, taking away the effects and simply seeing that an end result could be achieved by use of these spiritual forces. Then you would begin to understand there is no demonic or angelic influence. There is simply the instruction on how to manipulate the forces of nature through the mental and spiritual levels. Then you would see the manifestation of whatever was intended to start out, whether it would be manipulating the weather, that there might be plenty of rain during the growing season, or that there might be the fertility to crops and animals invoked, or that there might be hazards placed in front of advancing enemies, that earthquake might occur, that other, call it freaks of nature, like lightning storms or volcanic activity could occur to waylay any invading army. Is this good or bad? Is this demonic or angelic? Depends on which end of the result you're on. But to the question, it could be used for dark influences, even the destruction of enemies to the taking of their life, you'll say. Powerful minds, powerful understanding, how the microcosm and the macrocosm interact with each other. This is the comprehension of the book. To whomever uses the book, the information is the same. This can be determined demonic. As we have said, there seems to be several violent minds first appearing to frighten us away. But as you could see, they are nothing. They are mischievous minds. They are like the gargoyles who watch on the building. They are like the statues who stand guard at the entrance of temples. They are thought forms assigned to protect, to scare away, to deflect any inquiring mind. But as one mind is able to go through these thresholds, then they would go through somewhat of a incremental improvement or advancement, that they might understand how to use the forces of nature, which to some might seem to be magical. How they do it determines whether it is demonic, destructive, evil, loveless, you'll say, or the reverse. Compassion, humility, unconditional love. It is simply a tool. Is a hatchet a good thing or a bad thing? Is fire a good thing or a bad thing? Depends on how you use both, you'll say. Think of it in that terms, and then you would see what this all-encompassing understanding of those finite beings you would call humans, who were in association with the infinite, or those minds that would be universal. Look to the Master as of the Christ, Jesus the Christ, and you would see that, was he not trained in the manipulation of matter, of weather, of the world itself? His temptation, which many have fallen prey to, was to have complete dominance, the king and emperor of all kings or emperors. But he did not take it. He did not fall prey to this temptation. But he still had the ability, did he not, to have the power even over death. This is the essence of which this book would relate. Humans, as you know, humans would use such information first and foremost for their own aggrandizement, to increase their wealth, to look into the ground for things of wealth, would they not? Then they would attempt to seek their domain and dominion over others, their own people first, and then the people in different lands. This is vanity, and this is evil. However, it can be done by this educational record, you'll say. However, not to be alarmed, the book itself has great knowledge. How it is used, like the hatchet or the fire, determines whether this is a blessing or a curse. Humans, as you know, humans, being which they are, it can be such a great temptation that it would drive the ordinary mind into insanity. The insanity would to believe that a human would be a godlike being. Which it is not. And the temptation would consume this mind, like it has all who have touched upon the threshold of unlimited power, without compassion, direction,